was a valley which developed on clay belonging to the Cretaceous period and on yellow clay alternated with marly clay. This valley of controversial origin welcomed the river after this period, and of which part is composed of vulcanite from Etna. The eruptions were of outstanding quantity. Therefore, the internal parts cool down very slowly, forming large prisms with a hexagonal base or pentagonal, but also square. These basalt columns are placed vertically and are called organ shoots, which in some parts reach 20 meters in height. Sometimes they can be found lying down and are called stacks of wood, hubs and fans. The gorges are a usual site for tourists, an ideal place also for rafting. In the waters of Alcantara and on the banks, we can find flora and fauna typical of the hydrophilic and agrophilic environment. Among the species of plants and bushes present, we can find willows like the willow of Gussoni, and also the oriental sycamore with its typical palm leaves. Among the animal species present, it is easy to spot and hear the grey crow. Less frequent is the presence of the pilgrim hawk or the green lizard. The buzzard and the kestrel are very common. Among the rushes we can see the moorhens and some coot. In this part of Alcantara we can find various types of agricultural cultivations on this fertile land. Many vineyards and thriving peaches, but also citrus fruits. For a Sicilian, the citrus fruit orchards are called un giardino, which means the garden. This allows us to understand the role of the citrus fruit, which are not just plants, but real ornaments of the agricultural landscape. The province of Catania includes the territories of Bronte, Maniace and Randazzo, all towns which are inside the Park of the Nebrides. The area is rich with water. Apart from Alcantara and the Simeto, there are little streams of water such as Flascio, Saracena, Cutò, Martello, Serravalle and San Cristoforo. In this extreme strip of the Catanese province, there is also Lake Trearie, which extends on a plateau placed 1,400 meters above sea level, making it the highest humid area in Sicily. The most significant geological aspects are given by flysch formations followed by various types of clay. Vegetation present on this land is characterized by the Turkey oak and beech groves. At a lower quota, we can find many woods of Turkey oak and roverella. Beech woods are wide and luxuriant, and, as a contour, some examples of the holly tree. In the undergrowth there is the butcher's broom, black bryony, the peony, and the tootworth. This last type of parasite lives on the roots of the beech tree. Near Monte Colla, we find ourselves in front of an impressive and singular example of rural maple. Mountain pastures are frequented mainly by bovines, but they are also an ideal place where the typical black pigs of the Nebrides can run around widely. In the above-mentioned woods, in addition to the presence of the vegetal species, many animal species live there. The garden dormouse, A common but difficult to find rodent in the woods are the typical inhabitants of the Turkey oak. Another curious inhabitant of the beech wood is the woodland greyling, a daytime butterfly of great dimensions. Looking up at the sky, our gaze goes searching for birds of prey in flight. These mountains have been the ideal habitat for the griffons, the vultures that disappeared in Sicily in the 1970s and recently reintroduced into the two regional parks of the Nebrides and the Madonnina. Amongst the wild species present are the marten, the weasel and the wild cat, which is very difficult to see. Different paths can be found on this portion of the Catanese Nebrides. There are several structures available and constantly maintained by the forest rangers. Amongst these, there are the segheria, the trearie houses with an equipped annexed area, Santa Maria del Bosco with a little church, and the Ethnoanthropological Museum, as well as the Flashoe Woods Nursery Garden. The old farmhouse of Monte Colla, partially rebuilt, is a useful receptive structure to support the excursionists. The Simeto, the most important river in Sicily, with a length of more than 116 kilometers, starts in the Nebrides with the name Saracena, to which the streams Cutò and Martello are associated. Proceeding towards the valley, after covering some level but rocky land, precipitates into the gorge of the Cantera, a deep surface engraved by the river on a basalt substrate. The suggestive beauty of these gorges is increased by the joining of the river Serravalle. Proceeding towards the valley, the river bed narrows again until it reaches a second piece in which the river has formed gorges on a lava substrate called forre, cleft, volcanic rock produced by the recent Mongibello. The whole area of the volcanic clefts of the Simeto has been made an integral natural reserve to conserve and protect the environmental value of falls and lakes, created by the river after the volcanic eruptions and the typical riparian vegetation, as well as specialized faunistic components that populate such limnetic ecosystems. The Simeto volcanic gulfs that are part of the Council of Adrano are situated near the famous Bridge of the Saraceni, this fantastic monument which has been perfectly put into the landscape, built with the volcanic rock and blocks of sandstone, which remains suspended on 5 arches. Following the banks of the river, we can see white bushes of spurge. On the floodwater zone of the river, we can also find tamarisk and different plants growing on the gravelly river beds, such as the oleander, the wormwood, and amongst the herbaceous species, there are also the asphodel and the mandrake. The orientated natural reserve of the Bosco di Santo Pietro, in the territory of Caltagirone, was established in March 1999. The management authority is the Regional Department for Forests and Woods. The natural environment is represented by one of the last evergreen oak woods present in Sicily. Originally, it was a cork grove mixed with lines of ilex, a dense and extended forest, where areas of woods alternate with areas of cultivation, meadows, steppe and garrigue. In these areas, heather, rosemary and mastic trees are abundant. We can also find the dwarf fan palm and the strawberry tree. Walking through the woods, it is not difficult to spot some orchids like the Ophrys lunulata, a Sicilian endemic species, and also the mirror orchid, common in Sicily and Sardinia. There are several vertebrated species present on the reserve. For the mammals, together with the marten, there is also the porcupine. Amongst the reptiles, there is also the Hermann's tortoise, as well as the green lizard. In the humid environments, you can easily see the grass snake. Among the birds of prey with curved beaks, pointed claws and sharp eyesight that have a fundamental role in nature and which are the top of the food chain, 13 species regard the reserve of St. Peter. Among the most common, the buzzard and the kestrel. During the migration period, the territory of the reserve with its natural corridors is crossed by the hobby, the marsh harrier, the Montague's harrier, and by the honey buzzard. In the forested environment, we can spot two butterflies, a regular presence of the reserve, which are the macaone butterfly and the painted lady. Thanks to the synergy between the Sicilian Wildlife Fund and the Forest Authority, several initiatives of environmental education have been started, organized, thanks to the realization of equipped mountain paths. In March 1987, the Regional Park of Etna was established, the first in Sicily. There are 59,000 hectares of protected surface, divided into 4 sectors, covering 20 municipalities of the province of Catania. The park represents a unique ecosystem, characterized by a series of naturalistic and geological elements that make it suggestive. Crossing the typical Shara, we can see the signs left by the eruptions that have been stratified through time, upon which an evergreen vegetation has grown over the years. At a higher quota, we can admire suggestive beaches like the one on Mount Santa Maria. In the thicket, with a bushy form, we can find the juniper berry. Endemic is the Etna birch, which differs from the others because of the shape of its leaves. The other areas of the woods are mainly covered with Calabrian pine, holly oak, downy oak, turkey oak, and chestnut. At the lower quota there are vineyards, hazelnuts, pistachio, pears and apples. The flora of the volcano at the higher quota is composed of the Etna milk vetch, a plant commonly known as Spino Santo because of the presence of large prickles on its branches. At 2,300 meters, the chamomile of Etna and the soapwort also bloom. Going back up the volcano, you could bump into the red quiffs of the garden sorrel, a plant that is able to survive and colonize the basaltic sands of the volcano up to a height of 3,000 meters. To rapture the air, the colorful bushes of the Etna broom and weaver's broom. Among the ancient trees, the most famous is the Castagno dei Cento Cavalli, the chestnut of the 100 horses, so called because the tradition says that its leaves gave shelter to Queen Giovanna d'Aragone and her court, composed of 100 knights. This example can be found in the municipality of Sant'Alfio. A wood of ancient origins can be found on the north slope of Etna, the pine forest Aragabo, partially destroyed during the 2002 eruption. Near the Donna Vita barracks, you can meet a suspicious hedgehog, or further ahead, you could be approached by a fox. Thanks to the presence of the Park of Etna and the surveillance of the forest authorities, the regal eagle has returned to nest. The Park Authority has started a profitable activity of environmental education, helped by the use of the natural mountain paths. The paths present on the various sides of the volcano are different and various in type and difficulty. The first one created is on Mount Nero of the Zappini, on the southern slope. To allow an easy passage, old rural buildings have been restructured, creating starting points for the excursionists. Many shelters are also present along the high mountain tracks. These structures have been created by the forest authorities. On Etna's mountainside, there are many natural cavities. These dark ravines were avoided by man in the past, apart from being used as casual homes, burial places, refuge for hermits, or as snow stores. More than 200 caves have been listed. Obviously, this number cannot be definitive, as following new eruptions, caves can be formed or destroyed. Some caves are reachable after a good climb, such as the Grotta dei Lamponi.